Oh, this area is looking lovely at night. A lot of people helped me get to this night. Would you believe me if I told you that Fred Rogers, the popular host of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, told you some shocking facts about the show right before he died? This is not a story of rumors or scandals. It is a true account of emotional moments, creative tension, and a powerful episode that PBS almost didn't run. Join us as we find out Fred's last words, the challenges he faced behind closed doors, and how his most private confession, daily habits, and unseen stress affected his life for a long time. Fred Rogers always started filming early in the morning, before the cameras got warm. It was quiet at 5:30, so I did laps in a small YMCA pool close to the classroom. His steps were slow and he counted each stroke. The cold water helped clear his mind. After that he sat alone with his eyes closed, didn't talk to anyone, and timed his slow, deep breaths. At the end of the morning, he had to weigh himself and get the number 143, which was his secret way of saying I love you. Back at the studio, the team kept an eye out for those numbers like people who read the weather report do. Everyone was ready for a heavy writing day if Fred stepped on the scale and frowned. With a bright nod, the subject was lighter, and the take was easier. Grip experts said that the scale had more power over the call sheet than the director. New interns quickly learned that the numbers on that dial set the beat of the show. Rogers never went right to the closet. He first crawled under the set walls to change some props himself. The small traffic light that hung above the model street was his main goal. Instead of facing right, it had to face left. The kids saw stop before they went. Union carpenters made fun of the preacher with a wrench, but by 8 a.m. they had cleared the area. Fred had his sweater zipped up, and he thought the light was just right for kids. That simple fix often didn't work with a tight shot clock. Moving meant getting extra notices and doing work that no one liked. But Fred gave up minutes of his own screen time rather than back down from the deal. As a result of the agreement, the host and crew now always shake hands. There was no note about it, but everyone who worked on the stage knew that the traffic light calmed people down more than a coffee run. As soon as the set was ready, the PBS stopwatch got to work. Rogers made sure that there were full 60-second silences so that kids could think. The network's plan begged for 22-minute blocks with no empty time. With a red cue card behind the lens, floor director Kathy Borland kept track of those seconds. Offstage accountants kept the same close eye on the lost underwriting bucks. There were 2 types of clocks, and each day only one could win. Sponsors were scared during the silent stretches, but Fred treated them like air. Kids in the studio sometimes moved around because they weren't sure if shooting was over or not. Borland showed them scribbled notes that told them to take deep breaths until the host spoke again. In other places, editors cut, taking seconds off of song repeats or puppet arrivals. Frederick's silence didn't change, standing firm in the face of the TV noise. As breaks piled up between takes, people became more uneasy. Still, something else kept the mood happy. An audio tech brought out a scratched skateboard that a guest had left behind while they were setting up. As Fred hopped on one morning during practice, his sweater flapped and he rolled past the camera dolly. Every adult was frozen by the move, but the kid extras were lit up. He later said that slow balance is more important than fast speed. We missed a lesson when the wheel got stuck on a wire and stopped recording for good. A union note about dangerous stunts was sent out after the event, but it also started a crew practice that no one saw coming. After that, a small skateboard sticker was hidden under the trolley track to remember everyone that calm art can still lean toward bold play. This story, which was lost and was found in practice logs, shows Rogers quietly testing the limits while keeping his message safe. A craftsman juggled clocks, cables, and quiet times under the friendly sweater. He was determined that every choice, no matter how big or small, would help a child's heart grow. Fred's darkest pain was hidden behind Daniel Tiger's soft voice until a real tragedy made him give up on the script for good. When dolls brought real tears into the land of make-believe, they did more than just entertain. They taught kids how to talk about things they didn't have words for. Daniel Tiger felt Fred Rogers' hand on him and his voice lowered right away. Worry and wonder took center stage. In the next second, he could grab Lady Elaine, change his tone and stance, and jab her in a playful way to let out all of his anger. The experienced crew was ready for these turns. But the new puppeteers were shocked at how quickly things changed. Later they said in whispers that it was like seeing 2 people share a heart. Fred had self-doubt, and Daniel Tiger helped him see it by asking him shy questions that kids usually didn't tell anyone else. Fred remembered each paw, shake, and sigh from when he was a shy boy in Pennsylvania. Fred was showing the kids how careful he was when he said Daniel was afraid to try something new. Because the doll was honest, you could trust it. It was never too polished or perfect. People could feel it and leaned in closer to the screen. Lady Elaine Fairchild, on the other hand, let Fred's stress go, which he rarely showed on camera. He could break the rules with her sly grin and spinning arms, but not actually. The crew joked that she was the host's safety valve, keeping her from blowing up under pressure. Daniel wanted to feel better, but Lady Elaine wanted things to change and was against unfairness. Together they kept the emotional level of each show in check. Voice jumps in the middle of takes required complete attention behind the set wall. The doll was run by one hand. When the other person moved a handle, Fred's mind switched gears faster than the studio clock. He was sweating under the hot light for a long time before lunchtime. He insisted on doing every figure by himself though, because he thought kids could tell when someone wasn't really watching. That choice made a society where being real always beats being convenient. On a Tuesday when news spread across the country of a kindergarten killing, things got the tensest. Fred read the update, then went to the script rack and tore the pages all the way through. As pieces of torn paper floated across the floor, there was silence. He said they would make things up on the spot because grief doesn't follow cue cards. Standards and practices ran down the hall with legal files in their hands, not sure how to cross out words they hadn't read. Even so, cameras caught Daniel and King's honest talk about their sudden loss on Friday. They didn't follow any approved lines. The pace was set only by Fred's throat shaking. The stagehands wiped their eyes and kept the bangs steady. Perfect framing wasn't as important as knowing this tape. The spontaneous part went on longer than planned, almost 3 minutes past its time slot. The producers kept track of seconds like pennies slipping out of a hand that is open. The network executives quickly sent out a message: cut the show by 90 seconds or lose it. Fred listened, looked at the list and suggested a different way to get there. He took off 2 musical bumpers and cut down a fun trolley ring, but he kept all of the sadness talk. People who were young at the time called it the barter that saved the silence, and it was told in PBS training rooms all over the country. That easy switch showed that caring about kids could beat strict clocks. The band Lullaby was a softer secret that lived in the days when things were tense. During breaks, Fred would sing a soft song about divorce to the kids who came to visit the set. He thought the song was too heavy to be played across the country, fearful that it would make the pain worse instead of better. The sheet music was kept in an envelope with the words "Only If Asked" written on it. The lullaby went to sleep for decades without being heard by anyone else. After Fred died, archivists went through his boxes and found a single-track tape of that song that was made in the afternoon. Hey, the tune made me feel both sad and safe, which is something that a lot of kids fear when their families split up. It was put online by trustees with a note describing why Fred had to wait. Time is just as important as truth. Fans now use the lullaby in therapy, which shows that his care and caution were noticed. By not playing a song, he showed that making art responsibly sometimes means being quiet until people are ready to hear it. The neighborhood was never just filler, because of the many choices, voice changes, unscripted sadness, quiet trades, and a hidden lullaby. The classroom was sad, and the dolls were the first to cry, so kids who watched could breathe better later. Fred took all of those risks with that one goal in mind. Kids would learn that their emotions had names, and that those names should have room. Real tears learned lessons behind the calm walls that are still there today. The weaker the neighborhood broke, the public met Fred Rogers for the first time during his famous 1969 Senate speech in support of children's TV. 25 years later, there was no cameras around for a fight that was quieter but more intense. PBS sent a note in the spring of 1994 saying that the neighborhood fund would be cut in half. The letter came while scripts for season 25 were on the practice table. Fred had to decide right away whether to fire his friends or make the world less safe for kids to trust. The memo just wrote down numbers without any feelings. At the same time, everyone in the passage could feel trouble because of the whispers. Barbara, a costume designer, made a list of the seamstresses who would lose their jobs if the money ran out. Lenny, the props head, made a list of the puppets that could be put away when the foam ran out. Fred circled the line and said that some parts of the set were no longer seen as necessary. That one red ring told them he was going to fight, not give up. On the weekends, people generally took it easy, but on that Saturday the workshop was as busy as a haven during a storm. It was possible to pull foam towers from King Friday's castle off of frames and trace them on shipping boxes. Artists used gray marker bricks that bled under hot lamps to draw on cardboard. The change saved money, but it hurt confidence more than any rumor. Painters left after midnight, leaving the castle lighter but heavy for everyone. Monday brought a studio full of excited school kids ready for royal show. They saw drooping walls and peeling paint where strong foam used to be when the curtains were opened. Some people began to cry because they were afraid the kingdom had been hurt. Fred smiled until the camera stopped rolling. He then hid behind some props and sobbed into a towel. In later notes from a production assistant, it was written that the host finally broke, just like the cardboard towers. Fred put a small bottle of lavender oil in the pocket of his jacket that afternoon to help him relax. He stumbled over the line about making every day special in the last song, and his voice caught in the middle of a note. He asked the team for another take for the first time in 25 years. Bill, the cinematographer, put down his lens in shock. The sweater shield now had seams that everyone could see. Anxiety followed Fred home and made him pace around his study in an attempt to fall asleep. He told his therapist in a message left at 2 a.m. that he was afraid of letting down his kids.
The only recorded moment he questioned continuing the show is on the tape that came out after his death. Inside, he was scared because he had to find a way to keep the team safe. Because of that, he went back to the soundstage before dawn. On Wednesday, leaders showed up expecting to quickly sign forms for layoffs. Instead, Fred was drawing columns of numbers on the studio floor in the style of playground hopscotch. He showed that keeping artists on board saved money in the long run by avoiding expensive rewrites and reshoots. Each dollar is directly linked to a moment when a kid is learning. This takes away the cold abstraction. He had chalk dust on his hands. Still, his case was stronger than any chart. The top manager stopped, used his shoe to erase half of the cuts and said that they would look them over again. By Thursday, a new budget had recovered 40% of the funds that were at risk. Notices of layoff were shredded, and requests for foam were sent back to the carpentry inbox. The crew gave each other a quick hug and then turned off the lights without missing the production clock. Fred thanked no one and then drew a heart around the math problem on the chalkboard before going to get his clothes. There was a gesture in that win that wasn't made public until years later. Fred had sent checks to a nearby arts college without giving his name in order to start a scholarship for young puppet makers. He thought that new writers shouldn't have to worry about money when they were making stories for kids. Later, the fund helped artists become skilled enough to make sets for current educational shows. The checks were found in 2019 estate papers, which added another layer to his quiet memory. The week the neighborhood broke showed that even nice worlds have to deal with tough numbers. With Fred's tears, lavender oil, and colored chalk, budget lines were turned into stakes for people. It was clear from the way he saved jobs and future stories that advocacy never ends. People never saw the cardboard castle again after that famous Senate speech. The foam towers came back strong and bright. Still, everyone on the team remembered the sound of cardboard hitting the ground. A message to keep Wonder safe with everything they had. Stress, sweat, and carts that got away were hidden in Mr. Rogers' calm world. Even though they never broke the spell, the team learned how to deal with things. Crew bonding and ways to deal with stress at the start. The crew gathered in a tight circle around the craft table every afternoon for neighbor time. Camera operators, puppeteers, child watchers, and set artists all shared a quick happy and sad moment from their day. Fred paid attention to everyone who spoke while keeping his hands folded and his eyes on them. He respected quiet. When the last person was done, he ended the 12-minute meeting by putting the mood of the whole room into one simple line. Before the lights came back on, that one line became a guide that everyone followed. The ritual made strong ties that didn't break even when schedules got tight. A lighting tech might say they didn't pay their rent, and then a set carpenter would cover the bill in secret. A puppeteer who was sad about the death of a parent found wrapped food trays stacked in her car. After those honest minutes, small acts grew, turning the workplace into a web of support. Later crew members said that the circle kept the show's kindness real, not just planned. Also, music helped, and sound tech Bobby RWS kept The Cure safe on a backstage cassette deck. He put on passionate Motown songs that swished through the ceiling between takes. Basso lines shook free dust, and horns cheered up people who were feeling down. Production logs marked exact times for song breaks because they always helped people get back on track. Even kids in the gallery moved, but they didn't know that the groove was also good for them. Color codes added a second way to send quiet signals. Fred's collection of cardigans didn't just happen. Each color made a guess about the episode's mood. Red meant a happy story with fun questions, and navy meant that you would feel sad. The new interns learned right away how to read the sweater before they looked at the call sheet. There were even Q&A cards on the costume tags that reminded the outfit of the emotional plan. Dress sweaters and music sets went well together on bad days. If Blue Wool showed up, RS chose a slower song to go with the theme. Grips turned down small talk, and the sounds of the puppets lowered on their own. Small regular cues can make someone feel emotionally safe even when they don't say anything. Guests often felt the unity even though they didn't know what each part did. Behind that harmony were unknown heroes who didn't have to pose for pictures very often. The Vibe Guardian, Margie Whitmer, was the floor manager. She kept zip-top bags of bubble wrap in her apron. When a kid got antsy, she gave them a square to pop until their nerves calmed down. She also planned her bathroom breaks like a military officer, so no embarrassing leaks ruined a perfect take. Fred had more faith in her watch than in the stage clock. Sanders had knee pads on because he had crawled under the train tracks so many times. The car stopped without notice because of a very small bend in the rails. It was fixed by Mike's quiet work though before the producers even knew. During 12 seasons he made more than 200 quiet saves. Even so, his name never showed up in the titles. Later, crew shirts with a stitched trolley wheel on them were worn to remember him. He didn't care about praise. He said that smooth rides were more important. In 2022 Records, a new idea came to light. Jess Yates, who loads the cameras, came up with a hand signal code for kids who were nervous and forgot their lines. To say slow down, she tapped her elbow twice. To say speak up, she brushed her chin, and to smile, she circled her thumb. The kids read the signs like secret Morse code and got back on track without stopping the action. The fact that the method was kept by the producers after Jess left shows that even small ideas can have big effects. The notebook with the symbols she kept in her pocket is now in the show collection. In season 24, every safety net was put to the test when the trolley got too much oil during repair. The little car flew past the castle on its first run, jumped the rail, and slid toward a lightning stand. A tech jumped out of the way and saved the rig, but he hurt his arm. Fred stopped shooting, looked over the crewman's cut, and then told the writers to use the scare to build a safety episode. It's called Rails and Redemption. It aired weeks later and taught people that even tools that seem friendly need to be checked carefully. The team had a second short meeting called Gear Quiet at the end of each workday. The monitors were turned off and the lights dimmed. Everyone stood still for 30 deep breaths. The break refreshed tired minds and told adults to be calm before they went home. Stagehands said those breaths were like cleaning the brain of sawdust. No plan ever got in the way of practice. It worked faster than it took. Script supervisor Elena Price added an extra safety measure that no one saw. She kept a green notebook and wrote down every strange reply from a child. She marked times when a puppet pause or the color of a cardigan got more emotional reactions than she had planned. Every week the writers looked over the notes and changed future stories to match the real thoughts that were recorded. Through that feedback process, surprises in real life were turned into better lessons. The worn-out and taped-up notebook is now used to train people for new teaching shows. Poor teams might have broken down because of long hours, tight budgets, and touchy issues. Still, this group did well with coded sweaters, soul music, bubble wrap, deep breaths, and notebooks for quick thought. Their ways of dealing with stress turned it into a shared goal, which kept things calm in the neighborhood while gears shook wildly behind closed doors. The point of every trick was to keep kids safe in the area where they learned to talk about their feelings. The show's real family pulled the biggest load together during that unseen chaos. Fred's quiet statement and the last tapes. It was a calm start to the last work week in February 2001. Fred got there before dawn with 3 note cards that said thank you, pause, and trust. He put a card in his pocket for every block that he made. The crew saw that he touched the card every time before a take. The silent routine set the scene for the countdown more than any cue from the director. Monday was all about scenes where people said goodbye, but no one said a word. Fred's energy stayed the same, but his walk showed that he was tired. He could only see the traffic lights on the note cards that led him. Each card came back to his desk with a small check mark on it. By evening, the stack looked like a silent progress chart. On Tuesday, early changes were made, and producers pointed out that something was missing. Fred was still bothered by the loneliness event that had been put on hold years before because it was too heavy. He insisted that it be added right away to the finished package. Editors said the plan would go off the rails. Fred said yes, changed the stop card to a new trust card, and the game went on. A sponsor's safety zone was a reason why network leaders were hesitant. Instead of the whole story, they gave us a shorter highlight reel. After hearing what was said, Fred went into the voiceover room for a one-take speech. He said that some feelings hurt but help when they are called out loud. The message was 6 minutes long and finished with a simple thank you to everyone who watched. That address gave us a new idea that we didn't know about until the archive release. Fred added a slide of a picture that he found on a child's seat cushion. A single stick person waving at the trolley was shown in the art. He used it to show that real kids already felt the way the theme park sponsors were afraid they would. The slide stayed on the master tape and wasn't changed by later cuts. The crew pulled together as Wednesday's plan got tighter. The sound levels locked and the loneliness segment arrived in the timeline without changing anything. Editors cut out musical stings that didn't go with the story to free up room. Fred's original plan to trade worked again without any problems. The ending now had every frame he thought was important. Fred set up a private booth lesson 2 months before he died. He put together a 12-minute audio note for older listeners. There were 3 clear facts in the log that he wanted kept secret until after the air date. First, he said that the set only had sad people and never ghosts. He said that crew sadness sometimes settled on camera lenses like dust. He said that his long silences were a protest against noise that never stopped. He thought that TV made people afraid of being quiet. The breaks were actually lessons in waiting that were passed off as fun. He thought that kids should learn how to be still. The pause card felt like a mission badge at this point. He also said that every dummy had a fight with him at least once. The differences he wrote himself kept him honest. When writing felt safe, Lady Elaine pushed him. When fear lasted too long, Daniel Tiger asked him a question. All of these arguments made each word stronger before it got to kids. Joanne Rogers sat outside the room and listened to the whole thing through headphones. She wrote notes in the margins on a yellow pad. He finally said it. Her writing was shaking, but it looked like she was calm. An engineer wrote down what happened and then locked the reel in a safe cabinet. The pad was folded up and kept in Fred's Bible until she died. Fred's health got worse back on set on Thursday. But this goal never changed. The thank you card came up more often and was tapped after tough takes. Cast members could feel the time running out. Still, breaks were full of laughs as the trolley bells tolled on cue. There was a mix of joy and fear in the air. Friday's last scene was over before noon, but Fred stayed. His sweater was hung on the peg that has been there since 1968. He fixed the cart track one last time by running his fingers over the worn wool. He said the famous goodbye that millions of people have heard, and then he stopped and looked back at the empty living room. A stagehand later wrote down that silent look is the real finish of the show. Crew members moved quietly as the cameras were turned off. The lights were turned down, the wires were coiled, and the model skyline was put into boxes. Editors rolled hard drives to a fire-safe room and made 3 copies of each frame. There were 3 note cards next to the sweater on the workbench. They said thank you, pause, and trust. Each card had 2 clean check marks on it. They were put in a plain package by Joanne, who then put it under her arm. There were no more speeches. There were only soft scrapes, a faraway vacuum, and the click of the main breaker as the lights went out in the neighborhood. 3 weeks later, the master tapes were sent to PBS by insured courier. The episode of loneliness that had been turned down the first time was kept exactly as it was taped. The engineers put in a single-frame memorial for Fred, who kept the light on and sealed the loops. His 12-minute audio statement was locked up until he died, posted in secret as a web treat. People heard his 3 facts. Grief breaks fought noise on the set, and puppets fought for honesty. In just a few days, streams went over 1 million plays. The clip was first used by therapists in meetings. Classes were stopped to talk about how silence can be brave. Online podcast hosts, parents, and former crew members told each other stories, which brought up his gentle dare again. The last tapes ended a story, but the cardigan, the cards, and that red blinking light kept teaching even after everyone left the classroom. People can still slow down and feel seen after hearing Fred's quiet statement. His goodbye was not goodbye every time it is watched again, just a way for everyone to have better conversations. The world wasn't ready for the facts Mr. Rogers told them. Now the tapes in his locked drawer might hold his last lesson, the way one statement keeps coming back.